Let's bring in Nikhil Nazar on this. A huge win, Nikhil, a historic one, and made possible by so many who've pitched in, done their bit, both bowlers and batters.
That's right, Akshita. And why is it being considered such a big win? I'm not even looking at the victory margin, which isn't the highest in terms of Australia losing at home. There have been occasions where they've lost by a bigger margin. Yet, dare I say, this is probably the most demoralizing loss that Australia would have encountered on their home turf. I can't remember in my living memory team coming to Australian shores and dismantling Australian team in the ruthless fashion that this current Indian team has done. It was absolutely one-sided, as one-sided that even an Australian team that likes to fight till the end, yesterday at the end of day 3, when Josh Hazlewood, a member of the team, was asked, where do you think this match is going to go? And he had almost given up. He said, I'm already starting to think of the second test match. I can't remember the last time that a test match was Australia and there was still a day to play and the Australian team had given up. That tells you the kind of dominance that we've seen from this Indian team. Also puts into perspective the last 2 tours that India had of Australia. They won there in 2018, then 2021. But this time, many thought, in fact, I'd have to accept this, that no expert actually picked India to win this particular series. It was Australia that were considered the favorites, primarily because of the form that the Indian team had shown getting into this series. And yet, this sort of dominating performance we've seen in the first test match is incredible. India had to face an embarrassment of losing at home to New Zealand, and from there to bounce back in the fashion that they have, absolutely incredible.
Nikhil, so many headline performances from Team India in this test match, but who's the performer of the match for you, Nikhil?
Oh, that's a real tough one. That is a real tough one. I think, there's, of course, Virat Kohli with his 30th 100. That is the headline maker. But Yashasvi Jaiswal almost closing in on a double 100. Every time he's gone past 100, he's got 150 plus. So he's a contender. But I think if I had to pick a man of the match here, I'll have to go with the Indian captain in Jasprit Bumrah. Remember, Rohit Sharma, the regular captain, wasn't around. He had taken, skipped this test match because of personal reasons. So Jasprit Bumrah firstly stepping in place of Rohit Sharma as captain, doing a phenomenal job in terms of selecting the team and then execution planning. But more importantly, his 8 wickets. The 8 wickets that he has picked up in this match, I think that is the standout performance. So if I was to look at Yashasvi Jaiswal's daddy 100, Virat Kohli's 100, and Jasprit Bumrah's 8 wicket, I'll give that slight edge to the Indian captain in Jasprit Bumrah, because you had other batters get a lot of runs, but in terms of bowling, he was a notch above. And I'm including the Australian bowlers here as well, just notch above compared to everyone else. So Jasprit Bumrah, standout player.
And what a turnaround, Nikhil. You mentioned that also in our previous, conversation where you said that, look at how Team India performed in New Zealand versus now. What really has triggered this turnaround? It looks like a completely different team.
Oh, that's true. That's true. And that is why you have to really commend the kind of performances that we've seen from the Indian batting lineup. Now, what happened at home versus New Zealand? India were whitewashed 3-0, and that was a rare occasion that the Indian team was dominated by a visiting team. Interestingly, those were spin-friendly tracks that really suited the Indian team, and yet you ended up on the losing side. After that series, nobody was giving India a chance versus Australia. One, primarily because, of course, just playing in Australia, beating Australia is going to be very tough. India's current form wasn't really good. Australia, on the other hand, had almost qualified for the WTC final. So all things were falling into place. And I think what added to the Indian worries was the fact that, we were getting a lot of news from Australia that they're preparing these nice, juicy, bouncy pitches, and they're going to intimidate the Indian batter. So this was unfamiliar territory then for the Indian team to be going in hostile Australian conditions and then, out-batting them. And why even more incredible that they've out-batted them is because of the confidence that they went with. There were doubts about Virat Kohli, the standout player in the Indian team. But the last 3 years, his bat had run dry. Wasn't scoring runs at the rate that he usually was. So there were doubts about his form. There were doubts about, your youngsters. Can they really stand up to some hostile Australian bowling? And then you had another problem. Rohit Sharma, your captain, wasn't here for personal reasons. Shubman Gill, a mainstay, fractured his thumb, and he wasn't available for this. So you were scurrying then for younger players just to fit in. You were going in with few all-rounders, very white ball sort of a mindset that you had to adopt in red ball cricket. So with that team, again, you had debutants in that. Nitish Reddy making his debut, Harshit Rana, a fast bowler, making a debut. So a lot of inexperience there as well. All of these things put together, I don't think too many people had given India a chance. And not only have India won the match, as I said, it's near embarrassment of what Australia has suffered here in Perth, because that's how big the margin of defeat for them is.
Okay, Nikhil, just stay with me. I also want to bring in Rajdeep Sardesai on this broadcast. Rajdeep, I'm sure you're celebrating this historic moment, but explain to us, why do you see this as truly a historic moment for India when they've managed to beat Australia in Perth?
Look, this is one of those moments in cricket that you must rejoice. Think about it, beating Australia at this stadium where Australia has won 4 matches out of 4, which is seen as one of its fortresses. Coming on the back of a 3-0 defeat against New Zealand at home, this is quite a remarkable comeback. And it just shows that this Indian team should never be written off. We've seen time and again this team bouncing back. They've reached 2 consecutive World Test Championship finals, and there's a reason for that. They've got the best bowler in the world by a distance. They've got the best young batsman in the world by a distance. And they've got an absolute legend. And all 3 of them performed. Bumrah with the ball, Jaiswal at the top of the innings, and then Virat Kohli. So I think this victory has shown that never write off this Indian team. They've beaten Australia twice in series in Australia, and then to now come and win at Perth and set the stage for what promises to be a fantastic series. It's just incredible. And the margin, 295 runs after being bowled out for 150 on the first day. I mean, that's the comeback that fairy tales are written around. So it's a great win. And I think the real hero of this win is the captain, Jasprit Bumrah. I know he's the stand-in captain, but he was terrific, not just with the ball, but with the way he led the team, the calmness and the composure. We've got a captain for the future. Rohit Sharma will come back for the second test. But I think after this series, I would love to see Jasprit Bumrah become India's permanent captain. He deserves it. He's got it all to become one of the great captains also of the Indian cricket team.
Very true. He's led India to, of course, this historic victory. But Rajdeep, just solely looking at performances, you mentioned Kohli, you mentioned Bumrah, you mentioned Jaiswal. Which to you was the performance of the match?
For Bumrah, without a shadow of a doubt. When you're bowled out for 150, your captain has chosen to bat rather bravely, then you need a really stellar performance from your bowlers. And because Bumrah bowled so well, he also lifted the spirits of Mohammad Siraj, who's been on and off in the last 1 year, and importantly Harshit Rana, who's a debutant and also bowled remarkably well. It was just the most incredible all-round bowling performance on that day one that got Australia out for 104. That was the turning point. I know Jaiswal got a big 100, Kohli got 100, but Jasprit Bumrah for me is the man of the match by some distance.
Great performances all round. But Rajdeep, what do you think went wrong really for Australia?
I think the Australian team has a lot of batsmen who at the moment are performing well below their potential. They're badly out of form, particularly 2 of their best batsmen, Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith. And when you've got a team which has 3 or 4 batsmen out of form at the same time, they're struggling for an opener, you suddenly realize that this is not such an invincible Australian team at all. Far from it. Last year they were beaten by the West Indies in 1 test. Pakistan troubled them. And I think the Indians have shown in this match that we are probably man for man a better team than the Australians. And think about it. The Australians have 3 bowlers who have all taken more than 200 test wickets. India doesn't have a single fast bowler out of our top 3 who's taken more than 200 wickets, and yet our fast bowlers outbowled them. They were younger, hungrier and fresher. So it is quite remarkable to see Indian fast bowlers outbowl Australian fast bowlers on Australian pitches like Perth. It augurs well for the future, and I hope all those skeptics and cynics who wrote off this Indian team will be swallowing their words, if not the wicket.